Hey everyone, it's John here, and in this video we're going to take a look at how we can save images from the Add Picture control and signatures from our pen inputs to a SharePoint folder. So I built a simple app here to demonstrate how to do this, and let's just take a look at it in action. So let's go and preview this. So here we can add pictures with our picture control, and we can select our pictures. And what that's doing is collecting the images into a collection, and I've got them displayed in a gallery here. And one thing to note is that the image file name that I'm creating is going to be a unique file name. So we want a unique file name because otherwise we're just going to be continually overwriting the same file in SharePoint. So our file name is going to be based on a timestamp with milliseconds. So that's going to be unique each time we add a picture to our collection. And let's add a couple more pictures. And we get those images in our gallery. And we also have this pen input, so let's try that out. And we've got a button here to add our signature. And there's our signature. And now we can save this collection to SharePoint. So we've got a button here, and what this is going to do is trigger a flow, and that flow is going to do our saving our images to SharePoint. So let's click on that. And this is going to take a while. So the images I'm using are pretty high resolution images. So I definitely suggest that if you're doing this, you want to stick with low res images. And let's head over to SharePoint and take a look. And here's our images. So they've been saved into our SharePoint folder. And let's just take a look. So there's my dog Abu. And here's our signatures. And let's just close that. So let's take a look at how we can build this. So we're going to start from a blank app and create this from scratch. So let's go to the Insert tab and add our picture control. And let's make that a little bigger. And what we want to do with this picture control is whenever we add a picture, we want to add that picture into a collection. And then we're going to save that collection into our SharePoint folder. So we're going to do that with the Add Media button in our picture control. And the Add Media button has a property, and it's on change. So whenever our picture changes, we're going to be able to collect our image and add it to our collection. And we don't want to collect all the images. So for example, we have this sample image in here right now, and we don't ever want to collect that sample picture. So what we're going to do is use an if statement to test whether we have the sample photo there. And so we're going to test our upload image. And we're going to test whether that's equal to our sample image. And if it is, we're not going to do anything. And if it isn't our sample image, we're going to collect our image. So we're going to use the collect function. And we're going to name our collection image collection. And we're going to get two fields in there. So we're going to get the image, and that's going to come from our upload image. And we're also going to create a file name for that image. And that's going to be everything that we collect. And that would be the end of our collect function and also the end of our if function. And now if we collect a bunch of photos, they're all going to have the name image.jpg right now. But we need unique names. Otherwise, when we upload those to SharePoint, we're just going to be overwriting the same image over and over again. So what we want is a unique image name. And so we're going to create that with the now function. So we're going to take the current date and time and use that in our image. And that way it's always going to be unique. So we're going to use the now function to do that. And we need a couple ampersands around that to concatenate it. And then we're also going to format this with the text function. So we're going to format our current date and time. And we're going to format that like this. So we're going to format it with the year, month, day, hours, minutes, seconds, and milliseconds as well. And that way it's always going to be unique whenever we add a photo. So let's just hold the Alt key and test this out now. And let's add a photo. And maybe let's add another photo. And so we should have 2 photos in our collection. And in order to see that collection, I'm going to add a gallery as well. Let's move that gallery up over here. And for our data source, we're going to have our image collection that we just created. And PowerApps has actually mapped our image to our image in our gallery and the file name to the other fields there. So that looks pretty good. And we can actually delete one of these. So we're going to delete one of the file names there. And let's also delete that. We don't need it. And we're just going to make our card a little bit bigger. And rearrange these a little bit. And let's resize this image. And now we're going to do a similar thing with our pen input. So let's add a pen input into our PowerApps. And let's add that in. And put it down here. And for adding our pen input into our collection, what we're going to do is use a button to do that. And I'm just going to go back to my image control here and just reuse some of this function. So I'm going to copy the collect part of that function. And we're going to use the same thing in our button. And here, instead of upload image, what we want is the pen input. So pen input one.image. And here, instead of image, we're going to call this signature. And we're going to use the same text and now functions to create a unique file name. And let's hold Alt and just test this out. So if I add some signature in there, then it appears in our collection now and in our gallery. And let's add in another button. So we're going to use this to save our collection to SharePoint. And what we first are going to need to do is convert this collection of images into JSON format. So we're going to go from a collection, which is kind of like a table, to a JSON object. And we're going to use the JSON function to do that. So on select, we're going to set a variable. And we're going to call this one images to JSON. And then the value that we're going to give it, we're going to use the JSON function to convert our collection. And our collection was called image collection. And here, our second argument for the format, we want to include binary data. And that's the end of our set function. And I'm just gonna move this gallery up a little bit. And we're gonna add in a label so that we can actually see the results of our JSON. So let's add that in there. And I want to be able to copy this eventually, so I'm going to change the overflow property to scroll so that I can get all of it. And we're going to take our variable name and set our text equal to that variable. And now if I hold the Alt key and press this button, then that's going to set our variable, and we can see the JSON result here. And I'm just going to go to preview mode, and I want to copy that because I'm going to use it in my flow later on. And now we're going to head over to Flow and create the flow that's going to save our data to SharePoint. So let's create a new flow, and it's going to be instant, so we're going to trigger it from PowerApps. And the first step we're going to add in there is a parse JSON action. So there's a data operation action, parse JSON. We're going to use that. And the content that we're going to parse is stuff that we're going to get from PowerApps. So we're going to ask for that in PowerApps. And this is why I created the label. So we're going to use that sample payload to create the JSON schema that is going to allow us to parse our JSON. So let's use a sample payload, and let's go back here and just copy our output and paste it in here. And we can press done, and that's going to generate our schema for us. And now we can add a new step where we create a file in SharePoint. So let's look for SharePoint. And the action we want is to create a file. And we're going to create it in our SharePoint sample site. And then we're just going to navigate to, I have a folder here, PowerApps images. We're going to use that. And the file name we're going to use is from our parse JSON step. So we're going to use the file name there. And that's going to apply to each step around our create file step, as we might have multiple images in our JSON. So we have our file name, and we need to supply the file content for the file that we're going to create. And we have this dynamic content here. So we have the image from our parse JSON step, but it turns out it's not actually in the correct format. So we need to convert it into something that SharePoint is going to understand. And to do that, we need to use an expression. So the expression that we need is in our conversion functions. And let's just click see more. And the expression we need is data URI to binary. So that's going to convert our data in our JSON to a format that SharePoint is going to be able to use for images. And so in this data URI to binary, we need our image from our parse JSON step. And if we actually hover over our file name, we'll see exactly how we can reference that. So when we hover over file name, we see items and apply to each, and then file name. So we just need to change that file name there to image, and that should work. So let's use our items function and apply to each. And then outside of that, in square brackets, we can reference our image. And I'm just going to copy this. And if I press OK, then sometimes formulas have a habit of not sticking in Flow. So I'm just going to come back here and check and make sure that it's entered correctly. That looks good. I can now save this. And looks like I spelt something wrong there. So let's go back here and yep, change that and update. And now let's try saving that. And I'm just going to give it a better name than that. So let's call it save images. And let's save that. And now we can head over back to PowerApps and implement that flow. And we actually don't need this label anymore, so we can delete that. And what we want to do now is select our button. And if we go up to the Action tab, then that's going to allow us to add the flow to that button. Now, when you do that, it's actually going to delete any formulas you have in there already. So what I like to do is just copy and paste my button. And then implement the flow. So here we're going to add our save images flow to that button. And then I'm just going to take this function and cut it from that button and go back to my other button and add it in there. And so this save images.run function has one argument, and it's that parse JSON that we need. So we can reference our images to JSON variable there. And now we can delete this button. And I'm also just going to add a couple other things on the end to reset our app. So let's use a reset function and reset our media button. Let's also reset our pen input. And let's clear out our collections. And let's test this out now. So let's go to preview. So we've got a couple images in there and a signature. Let's maybe just add another one in there. And let's try saving that now. And if we head over to SharePoint, then we get those images and our signatures. So things look like they're working. Now, actually, I tested this out with some other types of files, and it turns out you can actually use this with other types of files other than pictures. So the only thing you need to adjust is in the file name. You just need to change the extension. So for example, if we change this to docx, let's try uploading a Word document. So let's go to preview now and try this out. And if I select all files, I've got a Word document here set up. Let's try opening that. So obviously there's no image associated with that. And our file name is this and docx. Let's try saving that. And let's head over to our SharePoint. Here's our Word document. Let's open that. And there we go. There's our Word document saved in our SharePoint folder. So it looks like this works with other types of files. And the only thing you got to worry about is getting the correct file extension. So here in our Add Media button. And there's not a way to dynamically get that file extension based on the file you choose in your picture control. So while it works with other types of files, it might not be a viable option for those file types because you can't dynamically get the file extension in PowerApps. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. That's it for this video. See you guys next time.